Donald Trump is out on the campaign trail, and he's now like moved the story past his conviction into like the question of revenge. Yes. So now all we're talking about is retribution and revenge, and not the underlying, hey, wait a second, you got convicted. You're a convicted felon of an actual crime. Here he is with Dr. Phil, of all people.
God.
The word revenge is a very strong word, but maybe we have revenge through success. But that's what I'd like to see. I want to see the country survive, because this country is not going to survive like this. And really, you know, the expression, I think it's the greatest theme ever in politics, maybe, because it's the biggest movement. We want to make America great again, and that's what we have to do. And I think you'd be very proud of the job we did.
You know, the Pope has a book out that he's written, and he says, we are all brothers and sisters, and there must be no resentment among us for any war to truly end. Forgiveness is necessary. Otherwise, what will follow is not justice, but revenge. And that's true even in the cultural wars that we're fighting here. I think you have so much to do, you don't have time to get even. You only have time to get right.
Well, revenge does take time, I will say that.
It does.
And sometimes revenge can be justified, Phil. I have to be honest. You know, sometimes it can.
But is the country better or worse for them going after you?
I think the country is really worse for what they've done. And I think you see that when you look at the poll numbers, when you see that almost $400 million has poured in since this horrible decision was made. That was a few.
Okay, aside from like his lying about his fundraising numbers, he's also including all the money that he embezzled out of Truth Social into his legal fund. That's also part of the money. But here's my point is like what the strategy is from Trump's perspective. The topic is now about revenge. And whether he's going to be good enough or not good enough to seek revenge. There's like, what's the revenge here? Like, how do you, like, I'm going to force them to also, you know, lie on their business forms. Here, then Dr. Phil shows up on CNN saying, like, this is really about whether Donald Trump is a good man enough and can get by this. Watch this clip.
Is his inclination, because just today, he said, for example, that he would indict the January 6th committee members, presumptively the members of Congress who were on that committee investigating what happened on January 6th. Are you more or less convinced after sitting down with him that he actually would follow through on those kinds of pledges?
Well, I actually don't think he will. I think this is a situation that, it's a process. This is something that I think he's had in his mind, that there's only one way to go, and that's to get even. And I think I really made some headway with him that is not the way to go. I think it's a process. I think he'll turn this over and over in his mind, and totally. I don't think he will do that. And to the extent that I have any opportunity to lean into this with him, I am going to relentlessly try and get him to not do that, and to get others to not do that. Look, we need to stop this. This is a time where America needs to come together, not be playing.
Okay,
I mean, well, okay. I'm convinced, sure.
But I mean, aside from the sort of like shocking sort of narcissism that Dr. Phil has, that's not surprising. But the amazing thing that's happening in the absence of something for like an Abby Phillips, let's say, to push back on, like, because there's a vacuum of people saying he got convicted of a crime that was, did Alvin Bragg bring these charges because the prosecutor is a political position and they want to bring charges that, make them seem like they're doing their job? More than likely, that's why every prosecutor prosecutes. They may, but they also don't bring cases they think they're going to lose. And this was a case where a jury found him guilty.
Right.
And this whole talk of like, will he or won't he seek revenge? Well, wait, how is this in any way equal. He's going to make up charges and try and imprison people because they sat on a congressional committee. That should be the question. And the Democrats are not forcing that question, and the media is certainly not going to do it because they're more interested in Dr. Phil. If he thinks, can you change him through therapy? I mean, it's crazy.
TV therapy. Well, I have a couple of points on this. The first is that, the revenge thing. I mean, this has been true. Trump has been, a vengeance is mine kind of guy ever since the 1980s. It's all documented. I've written about it probably a dozen times since Trump came down that escalator, because it's a very fascinating part of his personality, right? I mean, it is there, and he's always been that. But there's more to it than that.
Wanting like a Roy Cohn figure for his attorney general.
That's who he is. He's like a mob boss. You gotta show him who's boss here, and then they'll only respect you if you hurt them. That's always been his credo, and it's in his books. And he's given speeches. He gave a speech to Liberty University back in 2012, where he said, two bits of advice, kids. I mean, Liberty University, the religious right, Jerry Falwell University, right? He said, two things, kids. First, always get a prenup. Second, always get payback. And this is all the Christian kids are going, yay, we love Jesus. I mean, it was ridiculous. But so this has always been part of him, and nothing surprising in it. And, the idea that he's suddenly become so overwhelmed with anger over what's happened to him that he simply has no choice. It's ridiculous. He's always been this way. The second thing is, though, there's a strategy here, and this strategy is being pushed by the Republican Party, and that is some of it has to do with Trump's court case that's before the Supreme Court right now. It's the immunity case. Remember, Judge Alito, in his questioning on that, brought this up. So what do we do if we have a bitter president who wants to go after his rival? Don't we have to stop this cycle of retribution? Don't we have to stop it? So this thing is percolating in their minds, this idea that they have no choice but to go after the Democrats, to do whatever it takes, because they have to stop this. They have to stop the Democrats from doing this horrible thing that they've been doing. And what that covers up for everybody is the fact that Donald Trump, and I don't know, he's got a dozen or more former and current associates, are all criminals. They're criminals. They're being convicted. They're under indictment. They're being convicted. Some of them.
One this week in Wisconsin with Chesbro and others.
I mean, they're pleading guilty all over the place. They're being, this is not, if this is a conspiracy, then it is the most, voluminous conspiracy in world history. That everywhere across America, you've got their tentacles out to get Trump's from the lowest to his highest associates. These people are committing crimes, and what this whole thing about revenge, and you're absolutely right, they managed to switch, flip the script on this, in order to cover up the fact that this is the Republican Party has become a criminal enterprise, and this is what's happening. And nobody, the press is kind of running around following them in whatever. And when the Supreme Court comes out with their case, and I will not be surprised under these circumstances to see. And Sonia Sotomayor made a comment the other day. She says, I sometimes go behind my office door and cry, and I'm sure it won't be the last time. And everybody kind of goes, "Oh, geez, oh my God, what's coming?"
Right.
That may be that they do this. That the Supreme Court is going to let Donald Trump off the hook on his federal criminal charges because of this idea, and they'll justify it, I think, by saying that, well, we can't have this cycle of retribution going on. We can't have it. And they'll sort of, well, we've taken the high road. Donald, and Trump sort of indicated this too in some of his comments, kind of going, well, and I think it was in the Time magazine interview, he said, well, if the Supreme Court says I've got immunity, then I guess there's nothing I can do to Biden. Otherwise, I'm afraid it's going to have to happen. He kind of said this week. We're going to have to do it. So, all this stuff is sort of circulating out there in the ether on the right, and the consequences are going to be severe if they actually do this, because it's a total assault on the rule of law, and with the Republicans basically being a criminal enterprise, immunity being conferred, et cetera, the Democrats obviously don't have what it takes to actually use that. to their advantage.
It's just, I mean, they have what it takes to use it. It's just all they need is a mouth. It's just that it's just they're bad at politics sometimes. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
They've always been bad at this stuff, Sam. I mean, you and I have been talking about this for 20 years.
I know.
About this inability to kind of, to kind of define their opposition properly in terms of what's actually happening, and then use the system that exists in order to fight it. For whatever reason, they continue to kind of cling to some, it's as Emma said, they're clinging to some old version of politics that doesn't exist anymore.
But I also think there's something else that's going on, because, you look at these, Bradley, do you have that graph from the New York Times that showed, like, in terms of like people following the case of that, whatever it was, I think it was about 1,900, 2,000 people, just to say for the sake of ease, 2,000 people that they had, polled in that Ipsos poll, a month ago, and now they have, and now there's. How often do you pay attention to politics? No, keep going. Scroll down. The other one. There's another one about the case. Yeah, here it is. Approval of the verdict. Attention to the trial. Paid a lot or some attention, 71%. Paid a little or no attention, 28%. Now, that 28% also correlates with those people who don't pay attention to the news much and are low propensity voters and who swung to Biden. Those are the people that you need to reach. And if you're Hakeem Jeffries and you live in New York City, or if you're Nancy Pelosi and you live in San Francisco, you don't understand how people don't hear about these things. I'm just using as an example. Or you're in Washington, D.C., you don't understand how people don't hear about these things. Because, every piece of media that you watch, from Morning Joe at the beginning and then Morning Joe later in the morning, is talking about it. And so what's going on? We got the wrong screen up there. We just lost Digby, became a graph. There. Wait.
Still see her.
Okay, she's on the call. Just her video.
Yeah, our video
is not coming out.
One second.
All right, we're going to work on that, but I think we can hear you, Heather. The notion, it's as if they don't understand what, regardless of what the polls say, they don't understand that the message is not going to just automatically get instilled in people, that you literally need to provide it to people. All right, we're back. Sorry, folks, we had a little technical difficulty. Heather is back. You were saying.
I don't remember.
Well, the idea is, the Democrats have a problem with doing this, and they need to.
Repetition.
Yeah, it's repetition, and it's also you need to feed the media beast. And if you decide you're not going to talk, somebody else is going to feed it. Nature abhors a vacuum, and the media abhors a vacuum even more. And they will fill it with whoever is providing them content. I mean, this is a thing that Steve Bannon understood back in 2016, with the, we're going to partner with the New York Times, with Clinton Cash. They need content. And if I'm the first person there to give it to them, and we experienced that in this show. If people send us a link to content, we're going to look at it, or it's much more likely that's going to have an opportunity for us to use it. I mean, we run across stuff, we pull stuff, but if people are pushing stuff on it, that's, everybody in media understands that. That's why political reporters get 1,000, press releases. I mean, this is basic stuff.
It's very basic. And it's also, as I was saying earlier, I don't know if people heard this, was the idea of repetition. you have to bless you. You have to repeat things over and over again in order to penetrate this. There's a cacophony of news and noise and whatever good that's out there, and you have to repeat these things over and over again. And the idea, I mean, this going back to our original discussion here, when the verdict happened, and there suddenly became this big discussion of whether or not it was wise to call Donald Trump a convicted felon. Okay, so they all said, okay, well, we'll call him a convicted felon. It's not enough to do that on a day, right? And just say, well, he's a convicted felon now. Isn't that terrible? You have to call him a convicted felon over and over and over again, because that's how you penetrate. And this is, and people, well, they don't really know what you mean by convicted felon. I'm going, yes, they do. Americans do understand the term convicted felon. You don't need to elaborate. You don't need to do anything. Just call him that. It's the truth. And they get very upset by it, as you're seeing on certain news programs where Republicans they're getting angry about it. They're going, how you called him a convicted felon? Why do you keep doing that? Well, and all they have to do is say it's the truth. He is a convicted felon. So that it's a fact. We're just going with that. You just say it over and over again. Look at Donald Trump. No obstruction, no collusion. I mean, this is how he does it. And
Crooked Hillary. I mean, he just, he's giving you the clues on how he talks to his people by repeating these things over and over again. I mean, this stuff is so
propaganda 101.
Rudimentary. Yes, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating because these people are supposed to be professionals, and
well, I just heard the other day. I heard Nancy Pelosi, and I don't know who is the other one. Maybe it was one of her former deputies. I can't remember. Going on and on about kitchen table issues again, and some other, and it's like, but I get it. The economy is important, big issue. Everybody always says the economy is the most important issue to them, and yes, you have to address it. But this idea that it's the only thing you can talk about, and it's all about we feel compassion for the people who are suffering and blah blah blah. This is like, how many elections are we going to, this is all you ever say. In other words, this is it. This is the only thing you ever have to say. There's no adjusting for current circumstances in their minds. It's that it's written in stone. It's maybe the ossified sort of thinking of people.
I think so. Although
even
the
young ones are saying the same stuff. So what can you do?
Heather wanted to talk a little bit more about a couple of things, but we covered some good ground. We'll have more opportunity to talk in the coming months. One thing that it's sort of fascinating to me is that in August, we're going to see the Democratic National Convention. The Republican one is in July. We're going to have a debate in 20 days. The first debate is in 20 days between Biden and Trump.
It's important, too. This debate is going to be really decisive.
Very important. I think this is where Biden is hoping to sort of like reintroduce Donald Trump to the country. Although, it's a great time to introduce him the day he gets convicted of a felony.
Right.
But
That's
should also say.
Oh, go ahead, Sam.
The interesting thing is that sometime between this first debate and the Democratic National Convention, Joe Biden will be nominated the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. It will not happen at the Democratic National Convention. Right. We don't know the date yet. It's going to be virtual. It seems the strategy that the Biden sort of campaign has is let's be invisible on some level. Like, let's just make this all about Donald Trump, which makes the stuff about not having at least surrogates and other people come out and say convicted felon that much more ridiculous.
Exactly. And they've got a lot of them who could do it. I mean, you get Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer and J.D. Pritzker and, Josh Shapiro. I mean, these are all big name, they're second tier. We're going to hear a lot more about them in the next couple of years. Kamala Harris, the rest of them. There's a lot of people who can be out there making this case and doing it effectively. And I keep waiting, I've been sitting here going, well, come on, they're gonna, really launch here any minute. It's getting late, guys. Gotta get
late.
going now. Getting late, and I'm getting a little bit, anxious here. I'm having some bad dreams at this point. I'll be honest.
I don't think I'm going to have more than 2.5 hours of contiguous sleep for months. So
until November, and then maybe, I don't know. I may never sleep again. I don't know, but yeah, I'm getting anxious. I'm getting a little anxious.
Well, Heather, we will check in and see how your sleep is going, and over the next month. Always a pleasure. And of course, we will put links to your work at Salon and at the Uber blog, Hullabaloo.
Okay, thanks for having me. You guys have a great weekend.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.